Yeah, look at that. The birds dropped a papaya. Christopher just spotted it here. Well, that was growing pretty good, actually.
Yeah, shooting right up.
Yeah, this was vegetable garden out here last year. This area here was sweet corn, sweet potatoes, and then I went into sweet corn down the slope. I have now abandoned the region for because the slope, when it starts to rain, and I had tilled the weeds to plant the corn, it washed out thousands of pounds of soil. It was pretty sad. Luckily, the soil ended up still in our property, just moved from where it used to be. I had made my mind up that we're not doing that in here anymore. No more tillage, no more row crops. And so I've just gone to a food forest permaculture setting here, where the cypomandrias, which are perennial, will hold the land. The potatoes, they do pretty good. We got some perennial chilies over here. This is a capsicum baccatum, or bishop's cap. And they should grow into pretty good sized bushes. We got mango over there, Hawaiian tea, jaboticaba. And then going down the slope where the corn used to be, I tried putting in papayas. I lost all but one due to root rot. And so instead, I've stuck cuttings for ornamental plants back there. There's a Songa India Dracaena to hold the slope. Everybody's hot on mangoes, and they keep asking me about mangoes. And I do plant mango seeds here. This is a Kalapana mango, which is the closest source for mango seed to this location where the mangoes will actually fruit. The majority of all mangoes in the Hilo district and most of the Puna district, they don't make any fruit. They make huge, huge, huge trees. They grow very well here, but the flowers are destroyed by the rainfall because these are all bred from South Indian mangoes that are used to Mediterranean climates and don't put up with our rainy weather. I am now working with mangoes that are from Indonesia that put up with rain. One of these days we may have mangoes here. One of these days.
The holdout from the dinosaur era here. I think the Stegosaurus just came by this morning.
It is a bizarre looking fruit, is it not? Yeah, this is
Cherimoya relative, right?
Yep. It's in the Annonacea. Actually, if it is really, really dead ripe, it is a little bit slimy, but we tend to pick them when they're still kind of firm. The Rollinia, being related to the Cherimoya, has similarities. I'd say it's an inferior fruit to Cherimoya by quality, but by ease of growth, oh, this thing's a winner. This tree here was pushed over on its side by Hurricane Iselle. I think the only thing that kept it from going over was the kukui nut back there. The roots actually strapped it to the earth. You can see them rising up back there out of the ground. Right here is a pretty good picture of what happened. The Rollinias, as you can see, they're very, very superficial in rooting, and most plants on this soil, in this environment, are superficial. They grow on the surface. Even plants you're used to getting deep don't go deep here. It's because they're opportunistic. The water's on top, so's the nutrients. And so that's where they grow. But in this case, if it hadn't been for the kukui nut roots, which are much tougher, they went ahead and they strapped down the Rollinia like a seat belt, and it kept it from going over in the hurricane. I think that's pretty funny. One tree saved the other. But the Rollinias, they've got a lot of fruit in here. I don't think this fruit tree is probably more than about 5 years old from a seed. They grow like crazy. Oh, Christopher, you put your hand on the trunk there for, of course, the lawnmower. Yeah, you can see. It's a good-sized trunk already. And it's got lots of fruit in it. Ordinarily, we can get 3-4 years, probably, to fruiting in these plants. The Rollinia also puts up a little shade. It's back on the north side of the kukui nut. And it's doing a pretty good crop of fruit. Ellen is now using the understory here for a totally ornamental project. We've got anthuriums, some ground orchids, some gingers. Right here going dormant is a glabra ginger. There's African mask alocasias. That's a ground orchid from the Philippines there. I can't remember its name right now. Ellen's the orchid person. Anyhow, it's going to become a beautiful little garden filled with all kinds of tropical flowering plants and foliage plants and so on. And And I keep wondering, with the rate this tree is growing, how long I should wait before I build a tree fort. This is Christopher, would you mind demonstrating the size of that trunk over there for us there for perspective? There's a pretty tall guy. I don't know, what's your height, Chris?
Just short of 6'4".
There you go. Look at the size of this thing. This tree was a nut in 2009. Right here behind Christopher, you'll see the project that he and I got involved in together, what, last November? Yep. Was it? So it's a year. Yep. This is 1 year. Okay. This is passion vine or lilikoi. The varieties are on that end. I have Passiflora edulis purple. And over here we've got Passiflora edulis flavocarpa. That's the favorite here in Hawaii, is the yellow fruited. A little bit larger, yellow fruited passion vine. These were put in from cuttings. They were 4-inch pots last November. The plant did go through a very, very heavy flowering, but unfortunately we didn't get much crop off it because there was nothing pollinating at the time. My major pollinator here is actually a moth called the hummingbird moth. He's great in Hawaii because he can fly in the rain, he flies in the dark. The moth just doesn't care. Weather will knock bees right out. Hummingbird moth does his work. Unfortunately, that moth is out of cycle for a while when this was blooming, and so we needed bees. And so, if anybody out there on the islands got beehives and they want to drop a couple off here to pollinate these lilikoi, give me a call. Here is an example of a crop that the lilikoi does not require much attention or additional fertilizer to be able to grow in this soil. It grows like a native plant here. And so this happens with a lot of crops in this area. There's some things, if you don't feed them, you're not going to get anything. The lilikoi is an exception. If you feed the lilikoi, it probably gets too big. All right. So we're looking forward, though, to the next bloom coming on here, hopefully coinciding with some bees, because I've been seeing more bees around the property at the moment, and we're going to get a good crop off this coming up in. Yep, got flowers coming. Right over here, you were asking me about bananas, Christopher.
I'll show you later. Down at the end of the row, there's another variety of banana that's just very stout and looks like it's been here for a couple of decades. It's just like old growth banana. And other guys look like they're wrong environment or something, not quite happy.
Yeah, well, it's the question's a good one. The big clump down there on the end is apple. That's the most popular banana grown in Hawaii. That particular variety is so well adapted in the local climate and to the local soils that it grows stronger, faster, it anchors the ground better, it crops better. Now the hands, or the bunches on apple, are smaller than a lot of the other varieties. You don't get as many pounds of bananas on each stalk on this variety. It has a nice appley taste, and so people love it here. It's a good banana, I like it, but it's just better adapted. Next to it here, the weaker looking plants actually are Williams. Some of these bananas are actually shorter growing varieties. I have some dwarf Cavendish there that the stalk doesn't go more than about 4 or 5 feet off the ground. And so that's one reason. But over here, for instance, you can see there is a bunch of Williams. Now, the Williams will develop almost twice the weight of fruit that the apple will on a given stalk. And Williams is not as acidic as apple. The flavor is more neutral, and so it's much more like the classic Chiquita banana. But the stalks do not anchor as well. I will lose half of my Williams just because they collapse during the winds. They get heavy, and boom, they come over. I got one up above there, I'll show you. In fact, right back here, right there is a horror story. That is a tragic example of a Williams that was almost ready, and the whole stalk fell over right on top of the lilikoi here, and I had to cut it down. And so it will never make it because it just wasn't ripe enough when it had to come down. These here are filled out enough that even if this stalk collapsed, this is good enough that they'll ripen. Williams tends to lose almost every leaf and senesce by the time the stalk is finished, so they get pretty ugly around here. So over here on this end of the property, last year, all of this used to be vegetable garden. This year, it's pretty much entirely pineapples. I have added one row of papaya, because I had a volunteer papaya here came up and it's doing nicely. I was pleased with it and I said, okay, yeah, why not? More papayas down here. But we did have vegetables and a couple of things came up. One was that the amount of nematode problems I had in here, it's just so much root knot nematode in this site that I get angry at it. And I also got all weedy, and then the pigs got in on the sweet potatoes and messed everything up, and I said, forget it. I put all the weed block back down over here, over the top of the weeds where the vegetables grew, and we put pineapples in. Price of pineapples is going up and up and up and up and up and up, and turn time's really fast, and so we can make a good profit off of these guys. The only thing left from the vegetable garden here that's still thriving is, of all things, habanero pepper. And that's where, when you come here from the mainland, and if you have ideas and you've been growing cucumbers and tomatoes and whatever it is, pretty much whatever it was that was thriving in California, it might, but probably won't thrive here. You know, or things that didn't, like habanero. California grows a pretty good crop of these, but not like here. These plants are now going on 1.5 years old, still producing, and just loading themselves with more habanero than I have any idea what to do with. I don't have any elephants to stop in mid-charge, you know, and we don't use crowd control, so habanero is not exactly food from my point of view. But here's an example of a specific chili that grows like crazy here. Now let me show you another example. Right over there is the one plant left from a row of Capsicum annuum, which is the classic garden variety of peppers. And this used to be a whole row of peppers right here. It is now all pineapples. And the reason the peppers are gone is because the nematodes killed them. The only pepper missing out of this row was dug up by hogs when they went after the sweet potatoes. And so we got pig problem, but other than that, these peppers are getting larger, they're thriving, they're turning greener. Eventually they may get to the size of the coffee bushes. This was not considered, it wasn't predictable. How or why, you know, well, there it is. I can't tell you exactly why this chili is so well adapted, but it does originate in the Caribbean, just like pineapples do and some of the other crops we're growing here, like the dragon fruit. And the Caribbean crops seem to enjoy Hawaii.